Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to another episode of the Late Night Girl Talk. This is actually a Patreon series, but I just wanted to make this into a YouTube video because I feel like it's a really good topic to talk about. I think that there has never really been a creator that has debunked any of the myths around pretty privilege. So I want to talk about some of those myths today. Because one of the talking points that I hear from unattractive women, if you wear makeup or something, they'll be like, oh, you equate beauty to fakeness. And the type of person who says that, that's a person that puts natural beauty on a hierarchy. So they feel like if you weren't born with perfectly symmetrical features, if you weren't born with perfectly straight white teeth, etc., then your beauty is inferior. So that person, they actually still are participating in pretty privilege. They're just competing in terms of not wearing makeup. What they're saying is, I am genetically superior to you because I was born without having to wear makeup in order to be pretty. And first of all, that's false because beauty is actually subjective. I don't think there's a such thing as being born with perfect beauty because people move the goalpost for what natural beauty is. You were not born with clean skin. You still wash your face, you still wash your butt in the shower. So your skin was actually not born perfectly beautiful. All of the hygiene that you're performing, that contributes to your beauty. So I've noticed that a lot of the natural beauty Nazis, they will try to use makeup and enhancements. They'll put it on a hierarchy beneath themselves. But then if you ask them, okay, who's the most naturally beautiful woman in the world? They can't answer. They're just mad because you found a way to feel beautiful with using your enhancements. And I've also noticed too that there seems to be a correlation when it comes to the natural beauty Nazis. Usually these are conservative women as well. Usually these are women who date broke, dusty men who tell them, you shouldn't get your hair done, you shouldn't get your nails done, you don't need perfume, you don't need any of that stuff. They're kind of being influenced by men, or they feel like wearing beauty enhancements means you're being a pick me because they think that the beauty enhancement is kind of like doing too much. And in my case, I was already born naturally pretty, so I don't pedestalize that. I don't put natural beauty on a hierarchy above everything else. Like in my case, I wasn't allowed to wear makeup and all that. I wasn't allowed to wear beauty enhancements. So if I want to use beauty enhancements now in my 30s, I have the right to do that as a part of my feminine expression. But a lot of women who have been suppressed with exploring their femininity, they don't want you to explore yours. And also, have you ever noticed that those people that call you fake, it's like, okay, what's your definition of fake? If you're saying that all of that woman's beauty is fake, well, what's considered fake and what's considered real? Getting braces, is that fake beauty? Because you weren't born with naturally straight white teeth. Washing and brushing your hair, you weren't born with detangled hair. Your hair naturally tangles. Your hair naturally gets dirt in it. It naturally gets greasy and oily. So that's, you used a tool called a brush to enhance your hair. So a lot of the natural beauty Nazis, the issue that I have with them sometimes is they don't give a standard of what's considered fake and what's considered real. And I've also noticed too, when it comes to Blackistan culture, there's this obsession with being real. You got to prove to everybody that you're real. You got to prove that you're approachable and down to earth. And if you're not real, you will be exposed, quote unquote. So I've noticed that that's another cultural norm. It's this culture where it's like everything about you, I have to know all your secrets. If I don't know all of your beauty secrets, it means you must be fake. And it's like, no, just because you can't figure out how I look so beautiful, that doesn't mean that it's automatically fake. It just means that you don't know the method or you don't know the person. People are going through all this drama all because they don't want to admit that you're beautiful. Just imagine that. Imagine how much cognitive dissonance you're causing that person to go through. And I've also noticed that some people, they seem to equate beauty enhancements with deception. So they'll be like, oh, women who wear makeup, that's witchcraft. Or they'll be like, oh, you're deceiving people by wearing makeup. Okay, you're not trying to convince people that your lips are naturally glossy and red. I'm pretty sure that nobody is dumb enough to think that that's how your natural face is. And then have you ever noticed that if you ask a person, okay, what did this woman do that was so deceitful in terms of beauty? How did she deceive you? Was it her eye makeup? Was it her lips? Was it her body? What was it that you were putting on a pedestal? And that's where they'll become silent because they don't want to admit that they put your beauty on a pedestal. And so then if they find out that, let's say, your lashes are fake or something, then they feel deceived. And it's like, well, it's not her fault you put her on a pedestal. That's not her fault that you were worshiping her eyelashes. It's not her fault you were worshiping her body shape, or, you worshiped how good she looked on social media. That sounds like a personal problem to me. And so I've noticed that when it comes to the pretty privilege conversation, a lot of women, they want to enforce this singular definition of pretty privilege, and they get mad when you don't meet their internalized beauty standards. So it's like, okay, if your internal beauty standard is to not wash your face and not brush your teeth and never wear makeup and never brush your hair, okay, fine. Then go ahead and be naturally beautiful and never shave your legs, and you want to walk around with a hairy cooter because, you're natural, right? That's your natural beauty. Okay, fine. If you're so satisfied with the beauty that you have, why are you so upset at another woman's beauty? So that's my issue with some of the natural beauty Nazis, and that's why I don't. That's why I don't promote hierarchy thinking when it comes to beauty standards. Even for myself, I actually have a fluid beauty standard, so that means that at any time I could look like anything. So some days I might wear no makeup, and that's my beauty standard for the day. Other days I might wear glamorous makeup. So now let's talk about the beauty enhancement Nazis and the ones who want to police whether or not your wig is slayed, or they want to police how good your nails have to be. So where I start to have an issue with some of these women use beauty enhancements as beauty replacements. So that's what I call out a lot of times when I call out self-hate, for example, or people who make fun of Exoticals while simultaneously wanting to look like Exoticals. You've never heard me make fun of women with blonde hair. You know why? Because I wear blonde hair. So why would I make fun of something that I like looking like? That doesn't make any sense. So my issue is not the beauty enhancement itself. My issue is when somebody makes fun of another person, or they call that person mediocre or average, but then secretly they're over here trying to look like that person. So that's what you guys have seen me call out when it comes to women who are big. They'll call out skinny women and say, oh, you have no ass, and the men like me better because I have bigger boobs and a bigger butt than you. But then meanwhile, that woman is secretly signing up for Weight Watchers and looking up how to get Ozempic. She's secretly juice fasting, and she's learning about intermittent fasting. And another thing when it comes to the pretty privilege discourse, why are there non-pretty privileged women talking about pretty privilege? Ma'am, you're not even a part of the club. I don't see how you can hate from outside of the club. You can't even get in. You're not even a part of the pretty girl club. So how are you going to say that you're an expert on pretty privilege? You're not. That's not your experience. So I think a lot of women also get mad when they don't have the pretty privilege experiences that you have. And so then they try to move the goalpost. And they always want to make sure that you don't meet their goalpost. They'll be like, oh, well, if you're pretty, you should be a billionaire. You should be a trillionaire. First of all, ma'am, just because someone's pretty, that doesn't mean that capitalism ceases to exist. No, capitalism is not even set up for that many people to be billionaires and trillionaires. And that's why I laugh when I hear women bragging about dating millionaires. I'm like, okay, so you're telling me all these bitches on the internet, you guys are all dating millionaires and billionaires. In a capitalistic system that is basically set up like a pyramid scheme, where the richer you get, the smaller the community becomes. You're telling me that suddenly all of you guys are dating millionaires. And suddenly it's so easy to become a millionaire and billionaire. No. So I think that when it comes to pretty privilege, the way that some people cope is they will try to use your socioeconomic status to cancel out your pretty privilege. And it's like, no, there are girls who are pretty in the hood, and they still have pretty privilege within their hood or within their school or within their home country, even if they're from a poor country. So I think that a lot of people just get mad because they can't relate to your pretty privilege experience. And by the way, the reason that I talk about beauty enhancements is because I feel like within Black culture, a lot of the women they use beauty enhancements as beauty replacements. And so part of what I talk about is letting enhancements be what they are, which is they're supposed to enhance what's already there naturally. All of all of the surgeries, all the makeup, all the filters, all the lighting, all of that is just supposed to enhance who you already are. It's supposed to amplify that. It's not supposed to be covering up or erasing yourself. So I will use wigs as an example. A lot of women use wigs as a beauty replacement. So the way they're replacing their beauty is by putting the wig on so much that their own hair is now being replaced. Their hair is falling out. And so now, they're literally bald under the wig. Now they can't grow hair anymore because they have alopecia. If you have alopecia, you have successfully used wigs as a beauty replacement at that point, because now you're damaging your actual beauty. So your hair, you're damaging hair that actually could grow and be beautiful, and you're canceling that out so that you could replace it with the wig. So that's the difference between using something as an enhancement versus a replacement. A replacement is when you're harming your own body, or you're canceling out your beauty, or you're making yourself look worse, basically. That's an example of having a beauty replacement. And I see a lot of Black women online talking about how the Black women in Brazil, they grow out their natural afros and, their hair is super long. And they're like, oh, why can't I grow my hair that long? Well, it's because you never let it get any oxygen. You literally just put a wig on it and then you just cover it up forever. And then you allow mildew and mold and, trapped sweat and dead skin. You allow all that stuff to be right there, covering up and clogging your hair follicles so that your hair can't grow. Or you're constantly pulling your hair into braids, and, the parts in the braids are getting wider and wider because of all that tension from all those box braid parts that you're doing. You're doing hundreds of parts in your hair 24/7 and then wondering why it's getting thinner and thinner in those areas. Well, yeah, it's because at that point you have taken a beauty enhancement and you've used it as a replacement. And then when it comes to makeup, a good example would be wearing so much makeup to the point where now you have acne and bad skin and you're having allergic reactions. And instead of taking off the makeup and giving your skin time to breathe, you just want to keep putting the makeup on. So that's an example of making it a replacement. So sometimes people think that I'm just targeting Black women when I make these talking points. And it's like, well, if the shoe fits, then it fits. But it's actually not just centered around Blackness. That could apply to anything. It could apply to any beauty enhancement you put on, just like wearing high heels. High heels are a beauty enhancement, but if you're wearing so many high heels to the point where the shoes are too tight and now it's squeezing your toes, well, now you're replacing your beauty because now your actual feet are getting messed up and they're getting uglier because now you have bunions, you have corns and blisters. So anytime the beauty enhancement starts to cancel out whatever natural beauty was already there, that's an example of it becoming a beauty replacement, because now you have to wear the shoes to cover up your feet. Now you can't show your feet. Now it's not an option. A beauty enhancement means that it's optional. It means that it's reversible. It means that I can take it off. And I know that surgeries, well, some surgeries are reversible. I'm not sure. I guess maybe it depends on the surgery whether or not it's reversible. But generally speaking, most enhancements, you can take them off at the end of the night, or you can reverse it, or you can get it removed, or it will dissolve naturally. So with fillers, I can actually use fillers as a talking point. Filler, it dissolves naturally. Well, they say that it doesn't fully dissolve, but most of the filler will dissolve over time. So as long as that woman is not completely damaging and botching her facial dimensions and looking worse, then it's not a beauty replacement. So I think that some women, they don't understand beauty. They don't understand that it's a very in-depth subject. And of course, she wouldn't understand that. She's not beautiful. So, unfortunately, every woman is not pretty privileged, and every woman is not going to understand the nuances of beauty. So that's why some women get confused, or they just get pissed off and they think you're vain for talking about beauty or being able to view it from multiple different lenses. It's like, well, yeah, you're not a part of the Pretty Girl Club. So the only views you have on beauty are based on movies and media and, rumors. And have you ever been around women where they start bringing up their pretty cousins or friends. They'll be like, oh, well, my friend has pretty privilege and she did XYZ. It's like, okay, that's how I know that you don't have the pretty privilege. Because notice how you're approximating yourself to beauty rather than being a beauty yourself. And I also hear some women saying things like, oh, well, I don't have to participate in the beauty standard. I don't have to follow the beauty standard. Okay, first of all, being beautiful doesn't mean that I'm following anything because I can't help that I was born beautiful. And then also, if you're saying, oh, I'm never going to participate in the beauty standard, okay, that's fine. But guess what? Pretty privilege still exists. So just because you've opted out of pretty privilege, that's fine. All that means is another woman is going to get that pretty privilege. That pretty privilege will be handed out to somebody. So even if it's not you, that's fine. If you are choosing to not participate and you think that it's patriarchal and male centered or whatever, or you feel like that's not being a true feminist, okay, that's fine. You don't have to be beautiful then. Then just be ugly and be quiet. If you're content with being ugly, why are you so mad that other women want to be pretty? So this is how I know that beauty is actually a part of your identity. And I think that not being perceived as beautiful is a depression trigger because the women who are unattractive, they should be happy, right? If you really feel like it's relaxing, like you don't have that weight on your shoulders, you don't have to brush your teeth now because that's still fitting into beauty standards. Brushing your teeth and flossing them, having straight white teeth, that's a part of the beauty standard. That's not just a hygiene thing. Your teeth don't have to be perfectly straight and white. You can have slightly yellow teeth, so that's fine. If you want to have the yellow teeth, so why are you so insecure then? Why are you mad at the women who have the nice teeth? Well, it's because you secretly do wish that you could meet the beauty standard, but you feel like you're so far off from it that you can't attain it. So that's why you're mad at the women who do. And so by you being ugly, you're not systematically dismantling pretty privilege. Pretty privilege is still going to exist whether you choose to be ugly or not, just like how thin privilege is still going to exist whether or not you choose to be fat. So if you want to be fat, cool. But the skinny girl is still going to be praised for her body. But going back to the whole concept of a beauty enhancement versus a replacement, with this talking point where it's like, oh, this person is fake because they got a nose job. Okay, let's say a person got a nose job. Is that a beauty enhancement or a replacement? Well, technically, it is still their nose. Like, it is still a working nose. It still has nostrils. They have modified their nose. So it is not their original nose. That's not how they were born. But that doesn't automatically mean, oh, now that person is ugly. That person is just a surgical type of beauty. For some women, that is their beauty standard. Now, is that my beauty standard? Do I have a nose job? No. Am I planning on getting a nose job? No. But this is also why I feel like it's important to ask yourself why you want to be beautiful. So if you are thinking about doing any sort of beauty enhancement, why do you want that enhancement? And what purpose is that enhancement going to serve? Are you trying to get attention from somebody? Are you trying to look better in photos? Are you doing an acting thing? Are you a model? Are you a pop star? Does it go with your persona? Is it more of a costume? Because I tend to think of beauty as almost like a decoration. It's almost like a decoration. It's almost like a costume in a way. It's temporary. But I've noticed a lot of women in the Black community, when I use that term costume, that's a very triggering word for them because a lot of them are using beauty enhancements almost as like a permanent costume, to the point where you'll see them posting on Reddit saying, oh, my boyfriend's never seen me with no wig on. It's been 5 years. So they are, I would say that's more like you're actually hiding something at that point. So I think that's why some women, they don't understand when Exoticals talk about pretty privilege. Well, we don't have to hide something for years from our loved ones. If somebody loves you, then they really wouldn't care, right? But I've noticed a lot of women who don't have pretty privilege, they also have a tendency to conflate sex with love. And they also tend to conflate fetishization with love, but that's a totally different topic. So for example, bragging about ebony corn, or bragging that your body looks like a corn star, or bragging that your ass is more desirable and that a man likes your ass better than skinny women. Okay, you're conflating sex with love. You are conflating fetishization with love. That's not the same. Pedestalization and fetishization are two different things. Being fetishized, it means that you're more replaceable. That means that you or any other body part could get the job done. Everybody has butt cheeks. Everybody has a vagina. Well, every woman has a vagina. So being fetishized for your body parts, that is not the same as being put on a pedestal. This channel talks specifically about privilege and pedestalization. That is what the entire channel is based on. This is a sociology channel. And a lot of people are upset because they didn't have the courage to say the types of things that I say on this channel. They're not strong enough. They're too much of a coward. And they have a fear of being exposed as well. They have a fear of being exposed. They're not okay with defending themselves, and they're not okay with defending their talking points. I'm going to defend the Exoticals for the rest of my life. I'm going to continue talking about this stuff for the rest of my life. And a lot of people, they want to scare us off YouTube. They wish that we weren't talking about pretty privilege because for so many decades, people have been telling the stories of the Exoticals. They've been telling our story for us. And now we're finally stepping up and saying, no, actually, we get to speak for ourselves. And that's what makes people mad. They get mad because this whole time they thought that they were being pedestalized because of their ass, but in reality, they were just being used. And this is a part of why I made my series about pretty privilege versus medium ugly women because, okay, a good example is women who are medium ugly, you're more likely to be hidden. Whereas the women who are pedestalized, you're more likely to be flaunted. You're the trophy. So those are two different experiences. One of them is being admired publicly. One of them is being praised. Another sign of pedestalization is other women try to look like you. Other women bleach themselves to get your skin tone, or they tan themselves to get your skin tone. They're trying to get surgeries to get your nose shape, or they're trying to put in contacts to have your eye color, or they're putting on wigs to have your hair texture. Women are trying to secretly look like you. That's a pedestal. Every time I walk down the street and I see a woman with my hair texture on her head, and I see a person that's making babies that look like me, that's actually a form of pedestalization. I feel a form of pedestalization. So whether or not that person is even trying to pedestalize me, I feel inside, oh, wow, I must be really pretty then, because people love making babies that look like me. They like dating men who look like me, whether they're MLS or not. They like celebrity women who look like me. They like using filters that make them look more like me. They like using lighting that makes them look more like me. So pedestalization means that you're getting a lot of subconscious programming that is affirming you. So a lot of people, they make this talking point that, oh, the Exoticals, they're building themselves up by putting other people down. No, you wearing a wig, that's not me putting you down. That's you choosing to want to have type 3 hair. You're just admitting that you think type 3 hair is pretty or whatever, and so you're wearing it. So for those of us who happen to have been born with type 3 hair, that is a compliment. Another difference between a woman that's pedestalized versus not, the woman that is not pedestalized, she has a fear of being replaced. She talks about feeling outshined by others. And I'm not just discussing black women. I'm saying in general, this could be any race of woman who talks about that. I've actually seen women of all races make this talking point that they feel replaced by other phenotypes or whatever. So one woman feels replaced and then the other woman is the one doing the replacing. So it doesn't just have to be in terms of race. This could be with your face. It could be with your body type. First it was being thin was in, and then it was being fat, and then it was just having big boobs, and then it was having a fat ass, and then now it's back to being thin. So you'll hear women on social media complaining. They'll be like, oh, well, my body type, it used to be more in style, and like now it's not. And, now I feel like I'm being replaced. So that's a sign that will let you know whether or not you're being pedestalized. There are many different types of pedestals. A lot of women in the black community, they feel like there's only one pedestal and they think that it's just whiteness and that's it. That's the only way to be pedestalized. Just be white and then your problems are solved. And then the darker you are, the more fucked you are. That's a very ignorant mindset. That's a very ignorant, self-hating mindset. It's 2026. We live in a very diverse world. There are many different types of beauty, And so in my case, when I think about my beauty, I like to ask myself, what kind of pretty privilege do I want? So for those of you watching this, who do you want to think you're pretty? White people, black people, women, men, coworkers, your boyfriend, girlfriend, what? Your children, your daughter? Are you trying to be a role model to other women? Do you want to have aspirational beauty? Because another aspect of being pedestalized means that you are admired. People aspire to be like you. And by the way, one of the signs that you know you're on a pedestal is people try to expose you. So, for example, at work, have you ever had somebody try to expose your personal business? Well, it means you're on a pedestal then, because you're basically being treated like a celebrity. They're spilling the tea about you because you're a star. Another difference too with being pedestalized, you get away with more stuff. I mean, they literally have studies talking about how women who are attractive, they literally can get away with more crimes because, the punishment is not going to be as hard as it would be on someone unattractive. So, pretty privilege, it's not just about how much money you could make or whether or not you're a billionaire. There are many different types of pretty privilege, there are different levels of pretty privilege. And that's also why I talk about privilege stacking. I hear some people saying, oh, well, the exoticals, they're just obsessed with beauty. No, actually, I specifically came up with that phrase, privilege stacking, because I knew that the ugly rhinoceros community on YouTube, they'd try to call me vain or conceited. So from the very beginning, I've always talked about having multiple different types of privilege working in your favor. So I talk a lot about education privilege, like on the Patreon. I love to read, I love to learn. I love to explore the world and travel and experience new things. I love watching documentaries and stuff. So, measuring a woman's pretty privilege simply based on whether or not she's a billionaire, that's very ignorant. There are plenty of beautiful women who are not rich. They're not. And as a matter of fact, that's also a very Americanized way of thinking. That's a very capitalistic way of thinking. So, if you're a capitalist, just say it. And I mean, that's fine. I'm a capitalist myself. But everybody is actually not a capitalist. Some people are very religious or they're very spiritual or they value like family or whatever, they value that stuff more than money. Or maybe they're communists, they're socialists. They believe in like a bartering system instead of like becoming this venture capitalist. So no, everybody does not want to be a billionaire. Actually, I don't think I would want to be like a trillionaire or something because if you think about the level of exploitation that you would have to do to attain that level of wealth, it is actually pretty messed up. So, some people have a different set of morals too. And so making this talking point that, well, you must be ugly because you're not rich, that's not a very good talking point. That's not a strong talking point. But another aspect of like being pedestalized is you get pursued. People go out of their way to pursue you. So, you know how some women talk about being invisible or overlooked or second best or second tier? That is not my personal experience. And I'm sure that you guys can relate. When you're the pretty girl, when you're pedestalized, people pursue you. They chase you. They want you to join their religion. They want you to join their group. They want you to join their school or their team. They want you to be their girlfriend or they want you to be in their friend group. They go out of their way to like pursue you and recruit you for something. But a lot of women are so male centered that they only focus on romantic pursuit. And yes, that is another side effect as well. That is another form of pursuit, but that's not the only type. And so when you're the pretty girl, you actually can go through a lot of exhaustion because there's always somebody who wants something from you. There's always somebody who wants your validation. There's always somebody who wants your attention. There's always somebody who wants to expose you, somebody who wants to figure out your beauty. Have you ever noticed that when you're pretty, people require you to tell them all your beauty secrets? So if you're gorgeous, now you have to go and announce to everybody, oh, hey, I did this, this, and this. Have you ever noticed that, like with celebrities, they'll be like, oh, you need to tell everybody that you got a nose job. You need to announce that you got a BBL. Oh, well, Kim Kardashian, you need to tell everybody that you got your BBL removed. Well, no, actually, they don't have to announce what they did with their body. Why is it that you're forcing these women to be your beauty standard and your beauty guru? Why are you bowing down at the altar of these women, especially if they're not pretty? So that's a sign that you're actually being pedestalized. People are bowing down at your altar. They are demanding to know what the queen has done to enhance her beauty. That's why they will take your picture and zoom in, or, they're saving your stories or whatever. They're following you on Snapchat. They're stalking you because you are their guru. You're their beauty guru. You are their real life Barbie doll. And by the way, that's another type of pedestalization. People treat you like a Barbie doll. That's why when you go to the hair salon, they want to play in your hair. They want to chop your shit off. Meanwhile, if you're considered ugly, or if they think that your hair is ugly, they don't even want to touch your hair. They're actually repulsed by your hair. And some hair salons create a different set of rules for hair that they consider to be unattractive or unkept or whatever. And then they get pissed off, and then they'll be like, well, you didn't wash your hair. And so then they'll reject you from like being in their chair, versus the women that they consider to have pretty hair. Then they would love to share you on their page. They would love to post you on the front page of their Instagram story. They would love to post you on their little salon flyers and all that. Why? Well, it's because you're on a pedestal. So women who haven't been pedestalized, they don't have stories like that. They've never been treated like a doll. When people pedestalize you, they give you certain clothes. They give you all these hand-me-downs and shit, like in your family, or like with your friend group, or even at work. People might give you free clothes because you're just a Barbie doll. They feel like, oh, you can fit this. Well, you have the body to pull this off, so let me give you all these free clothes. Or they live vicariously through you and they want to pretend that they know you. So they make up all this lore about you. They make up stories or whatever. They'll be like, oh, yeah, I used to be friends with her. Or like men, they will brag and say that they slept with you, even if they didn't. Men will lie on their dicks saying that they slept with you when they did not. And speaking of male and female dynamics, something that's not talked about on YouTube is how a lot of gay men can also be jealous of beautiful women as well, because that's actually one of my hater archetypes. Sometimes I've dealt with that. It's not all gay guys. It's just usually if he's gay and unambiguously black, and like maybe he came from an environment where they didn't like him or whatever, then I've noticed sometimes he would project that onto me. But I have actually asked a lot of my friends who are also pretty, hey, has any gay guy ever been jealous of you? That is also a thing as well. So it's not like, oh, it's only women who are jealous. No, anybody could be jealous. They could be old, young, male, female, straight, gay. And I think sometimes when it comes to the gay men who get jealous of pretty women, it's because as a pretty woman, they feel like you have more access to men than they do. Like you have more access to have sex with more men. And for some men, they literally get jealous of that. Why does nobody talk about that? Why does nobody call that out? And you see, this is why I love this channel, because I'm not afraid to say things that other people, this is not a politically correct channel. This is not a channel for good girls. I said what I said. I do think that there are some gay men out there who are literally jealous of beautiful women, and they have like vaginal envy, is what I call it. Just this jealousy that comes with you as a woman having femininity and having that feminine power and being seen as the standard of femininity. There are some gay men out there who wish that they could be seen as a standard of femininity. So when you're the pretty little princess, you're this pretty dainty little princess just walking around looking cute in your dress, and it's socially acceptable for you to be seen as a standard of femininity, I could see how that could piss off some gay men as well. So, that's another aspect of being pedestalized. You trigger people's jealousy who you would not expect. And also, what you're not going to be able to do, you're not going to be able to hide behind being LGBT. Like, just because somebody's LGBT doesn't mean they can say whatever they want. And that's something that has pissed me off sometimes. Like in the past, when it came to me experiencing jealousy with gay men, it's like, just because you're a part of a marginalized group, that does not mean that you could now put me down. Like, a lot of people think that if you're more privileged than them, that they have the right to bully you. No, you don't have the right to bully me just because I'm more privileged than you. I'm going to bully you back. And I've also noticed that there are some people who are still misogynist. Like, just because you're a gay male doesn't mean that you're not a misogynist. So I think that sometimes with a lot of gay men, they have not deconstructed their internalized misogyny. And that's why, I always say this is the pretty girl club. And I do make sure to say that this channel is geared towards women because at the end of the day, I don't understand what it's like to be a guy. And, I don't even know what that's like. So my channel, it may not always hit those talking points that could be relatable to like trans guys or whatever. He was born a male and then he tries to transition or whatever. My talking points may not be applicable to that, but I think that's a dynamic that's not talked about either. Is even how some people in the LGBT community, or if she's lesbian, I've also had it happen where studs. I've noticed one of my number one hater archetypes as well. Occasionally it'll be like this stud type of woman, not the feminine lesbian, but like the masculine one. Sometimes those types of women don't like me as well. Like, especially if she's black. If she's like a black stud, I've noticed in real life sometimes she will automatically beef with me. And I think sometimes that is also tied to this internalized jealousy where it's like, how dare you be the standard of femininity? Like, some people get upset that you are perceived as the one who has the feminine privilege. Like studs, they do not have feminine privilege in our society the same way that a heterosexual, pretty privileged woman could have. So I think that could also be a point of jealousy against pretty women as well. That's another dynamic that I've never heard any creators talk about. Because a lot of people, they're scared. Most people are scared to say anything against the black community, especially black women. And they're usually afraid to say anything that disagrees with like the LGBT community as well. So I've noticed that people don't usually talk about those talking points. Why does nobody talk about that? Because some of the cattiest people that I've ever encountered have actually been people from the LGBT community. Think about the red pill. The red pill is run by the LGBT community. It is. Those guys are LGBT. I don't know of anybody who considers those guys straight. Myron Gaines or whatever, I don't consider him straight. And clavicular, he is not straight in my opinion. So some of the communities that are actually the most toxic against women and some of the communities that are the most combative actually are run by men who are gay. They're DL or whatever. So I don't know if it has to do with being DL versus being out. I've never really thought about it that deeply, but maybe on the Patreon we can talk about that because I'm pretty sure YouTube will try to censor me for talking about this. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.